Welcome to the Wknd Warriors Fishing Podcast, presented by 13 Fishing Canada. Make your own luck. We are here to talk everything fishing with special guests from across the industry. Now, here is your hosts, Logan Lewis and Jesse Cadrain.
Welcome to another episode of the Wknd Warriors Fishing Podcast. We've got episode 91 hooked up here for you. I am your host, Logan Lewis, joined for the first time, and what I'll say is a real episode as a co-host. I've got my good friend, Jesse Cadrain. How's it going?
I'm doing good, Logan. Everything's happy and busy on my end. How are things with you?
Same thing, maybe not as busy as you. You've got, we just recorded last night. We're doing this on Monday the 14th, but we just recorded this episode on Sunday the 13th. And after that, you proceeded to go have a 3-hour drive through somewhat of the middle of the night.
Yeah, 3-hour drive back to Cold Lake. Seen one moose on the side of the road, was able to avoid it, and so that was a good thing.
That's good, especially if it's on the side of the road. That means you were on the road.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. Even got the episode uploaded. I know we kind of did a little bit of a trust fall there to see what happened, and luckily all that worked out, so people will get to hear your beautiful HD voice in a couple minutes here once we get through this intro. But you also had, just touch on it quickly, you also had your last ice fishing trip of the year.
Yeah. So my last Saskatchewan ice fishing trip, I guess you could say. I took a drive to some unknown waters for me, some new waters. I don't really want to name drop or spot burn too much, but I went stock trout fishing because that's the only thing open in central Saskatchewan or the central zone. I went tiger trout fishing, and I've
strictly tigers,
rainbows as well. And then I was tossing up the idea of going for browns if the tigers and rainbows went really well. Mm-hmm. Ended up grinding 2 nights out on the ice by myself, and I got the fish I wanted. I've been like dreaming of a big tiger trout for a couple years now, mm-hmm. and finally made it happen. She was 27.5 with a tail pinch. Came in.
Jeez.
I was jigging in my shack, 14 or 15 feet of water, seen a little
so you're
shimmer.
A bit deeper.
Yeah, I was like right on the break line where it flattened into the mud. Just following that transition line. And I was jigging in my shack. Sun was just about to go down, like that prime time. And I seen this little flicker of color, probably only 5-6 feet below the ice, 10 feet away from me. I just quickly reeled up, reached over, hit record on the GoPro, looked back down at my screen, and it got like 6 feet away, and I could tell that it was the biggest fish I marked the whole time I was there, and it didn't hesitate, just crushed my hair jig. Wow. And the rest is history. Thankfully landed it, and it was a rush.
That would have been a good fight.
It was. It was epic.
Well, that's awesome. And then you said your last Saskatchewan one, you're actually heading up to the territories tomorrow, the 15th?
Yeah, so we are doing a fishing and maintenance run at Lac La Marte with the lodge. So myself, Colby Hales, and of course Zach Brown.
All on the guide episode.
Of course, yeah. So all familiar faces. We'll be heading up tomorrow, getting to the lodge hopefully the night of, or Wednesday night.
Okay.
We'll see. There's some, of course, being in the north, there's some logistic issues that we're still dealing with, but it should be a ton of fun regardless. So got a little bit of work to do, and hopefully some fishing and get onto some lake trout and maybe even a big pike if we're lucky. Yeah,
that'd be sweet to pull some big lakers right by the lodge through the ice. I wonder how thick the ice is going to be too. That could be interesting.
According to the locals, they're saying 3 feet, so that's really not.
Oh, nothing too crazy then.
Yeah.
Probably a good amount of snow on top, maybe.
I think there's a fair bit, but no slush from what they're saying, and no ice heaves.
Oh, even better. And not much for current in that lake, right? So there shouldn't be, unless like some of your points, which is always kind of a sketchier area, but
Yeah.
Well, that would be fun.
Should be good.
It'll be a good time. So you'll be gone for the better half of the last half of April. So we'll be lining up some things around that for future episodes. But before we head into today's episode, I want to mention the sponsors of the podcast. We've got 13 Fishing, the presenting sponsor of the Wknd Warriors Fishing Podcast, have been since the very start. So I want to give a big thank you to them. You can head over to the Rapala Canada website, browse the whole website, all the brands under their umbrella there, and use the code Wknd Warriors. That's WKND Warriors to save yourself 15% off your entire purchase, whether that's an auger, whether that's 10 rods, 10 reels, whether it's some crankbaits, some jigs. They got those new tungsten jigs that I'm liking. Anything on the website, save yourself 15% off with the code Wknd Warriors. Next up, Saskatchewan Wildlife Federation. Want to mention that if you did have your 2024 membership, that expired at the end of December in 2024. So definitely re-up that membership if you can. And you had a little topic to touch on there as well.
Yeah, so if you go on to their website, that's swf.sk.ca, they have a killer raffle going on right now. So you type that in, swf.sk.ca, and right on the front page it says purchase raffle tickets. You click on that, they are giving away a 14-foot Starcraft boat with a 20 horsepower Mercury on the back. So like a stellar little bush boat and, small watercraft. There's a Kawasaki 750 4x4 quad ATV and an electric pedal bike as well. All said and done.
Popular.
Yeah, I'm seeing them everywhere in town too, and hunters are using them more and more.
Oh,
so like all said and done, there's 432. There's like $40,000 worth of prizing, maximum 80,000 tickets. Plus there's 50-50. So yeah, go ahead and check that out. Buy yourself some tickets. They're reasonably priced. I picked myself up more than I probably should have. I couldn't resist buying a few extra tickets, but it's going to a good cause. Yeah. So how can you not, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, especially going to that good cause. And speaking of which, I did see the cultivation station was stocking some lakes today on the skidoos. So yeah. Another awesome thing that the Sask Wildlife does.
And something I should add, the ticket deadline for that is May 13th. So It's coming up quick.
Yeah, no, that is. It's going to be the start of the season soon here for the Southern Zone. When does the Central Zone start?
The Central is the 15th of May.
Okay, yeah, so 10 days later. So we're looking at May 5th down here. Things are getting pretty sloppy out on the lakes. Obviously, no one's really out there right now on these southern ones. But based on some satellite imaging I'm seeing, it looks like Deef has maybe either gotten really, really rotten or even has some openings. I don't know about Last Mountain yet. I couldn't really see it too well. But, yeah, things are definitely starting to change here. Lots of the creeks and stuff that are dry during the majority of the year, those are flowing pretty good right now. I'm sure the suckers will be running pretty soon. And hopefully, if things go according to plan, that might be a little sneak peek into the episode after this one. But in today's episode, we should have mentioned this right off the top, but we have Colin Regier from Purity Fly Co. in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan's only dedicated fly shop. He is the owner. We have like an hour 15, hour 20 conversation with him talking all things fly fishing, not just trout either. We cover walleye, pike, grayling, carp. Like we get into it all, and definitely something that I think could become a lot more popular in Saskatchewan, as it is a lot of fun, and it doesn't have to be focused just towards trout. But speaking on that, wanted to mention before we hop into the interview here that Colin is actually running alongside with Phil Rowley. I hope I got that right. I looked it up before, but they are going to be running a Stillwater fishing seminar. It's called the Stillwater Spectacular. So basically what this is, it's going to be made up of 2 Zoom classes and then 2 days actually on the water, putting those into practice. So April 22nd and 28th. There's going to be those 2 Zoom classes. And if you missed the live, don't worry, it's recorded. It'll be uploaded right after the fact. These sessions will speak on the gear needed to effectively fly fish still waters in Saskatchewan. And then the second one will focus on how to approach a lake and different tactics to fish. This one definitely pertains to Saskatchewan, as lots of what people would be doing fly fishing, as you'll hear in this episode, is that still water approach. So it's definitely something that I think would be quite useful if you're looking to get into fly fishing or just wanting to fine tune your game as well. And then you've got the 2 other days where it all gets put into practice. That's May 24th and 25th at a to be determined destination. And that's kind of the gist of it. You're going to be out there putting this into practice. Did want to mention that every person coming will be responsible for their own travel, accommodation, food and gear, that kind of stuff. And you get these 4 classes, time on the water, with Phil, who, I mean, I'm not in the fly fishing scene as much, so I didn't know this, but he says that Phil's built a career on fly fishing still water and is one of the go-to guys out there for education in this aspect of fly fishing. So you're getting a very good mentor there in Colin and Phil, and it's going to be at a cost of $500 plus tax for this. There's only 4 spots left. So if you're thinking about it, definitely shoot Colin a message. He answers really quick and get yourself on that list. You have anything to add there, Jesse?
Sounds like a great opportunity to just be a sponge and learn a ton of knowledge, because what you guys will hear from Colin here soon, like, he's a very knowledgeable, passionate angler, and I can only imagine the 2 of those guys together, what you could learn.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess without further ado, here's the interview with Colin Regier.
So we're very excited. We're going to sit down, talk about some fly fishing, Saskatchewan, some local stuff, being a small business owner in the province. And yeah, stay tuned, guys. This one should be a really good time. Hey there, Colin. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
We're doing good. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You enjoying doing your first intro, Jesse?
I'm a little nervous. I'm a little sweaty.
It was man. It was good.
Yeah. No, you gotta get your first one out of the way. But I guess, yeah, like Jesse said, welcome to the podcast. This is one I know Jesse's been into your shop before. Is it a couple times, Jesse?
Yeah, I've been down a handful of times. Yeah.
Okay. And then we were just talking before how I met you back at the Sport and Leisure Show in something like 2018, quite a while ago, something like that. And definitely excited to have you on. I've definitely wanted to kind of dive into that small business, especially tackle shop. I think everyone who enjoys fishing has thought at one time or another, maybe I should open a tackle shop or something along those lines, right? So I guess before we dive into everything here at the interview, do you want to just let the listeners know who you are, where the shop's located, kind of nice introduction for yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, my name's Colin Regier. I'm the owner of Purity Fly Co. in Saskatoon. The shop is located at 733 Broadway Avenue, but it's a little bit of a weird entrance. So it's back alley access. My storefront is in the alley of that building. The best way to describe it is if you know where Brain Sport is, or Leo's on 10th Street. I'm just across 10th. If you face south from Brain Sport, you'll see the storefront. So
okay, nice. That's good. And when did you start your company?
So I started, I actually bought the fly shop back in 2012 from the previous owner, who was the second owner. If we go way back, Eric Schrader actually started the Northern Fly Fishermen in 1985. And he stole it in about 97, 98 to Paul Olsher. And then I bought it in 2012 and ran it out of my house up until... March of 22, I moved into that Broadway location. So I've been in there for 3 years.
Nice. So when you're running out of your house, was it more just an online business?
No, I mean, I had an online aspect to it, but it was, I had it set up in my garage. So just people would kind of call, make an appointment, come on out, and yeah. That's
different as far as it goes, but I feel like that's kind of on par for fly fishing stuff as well. Like, not to make generalities, right? But like, that's something where you can really go through. I feel like lots of the fly fishing stuff is kind of more on that specialized high end thing. And when you are going shopping, you kind of know what you're generally looking for. And then it's going to someone like you who knows the specifics and kind of dialing that in, right? It's not as much like conventional fishing where you just kind of walk in, I'll go grab a 5 of diamonds off the wall and walk out, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think I think it's less and less, but back in the day, that was a lot of the fly fishing shops in Canada were kind of home-based businesses because, there wasn't online stuff, like especially when Eric started it. So it was either mail order or you had a guy like Eric that just had a small little shop in his basement, and especially on the fly tying sort of things, like a lot of that stuff's really hard to source.
Right.
And for larger shops, like larger tackle shops, especially here in Saskatchewan, I mean, it's not really a big part of their business, if any. So somebody has to have it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think that's the one thing. You go to my Cabela's would be in Regina there, and even that isn't like, you can't really get like if I'm going on a trip to go fly fishing, even in Saskatchewan, you're not really finding as much fly stuff there, even though it is something that is done in the province, right? Or even when I'm looking to get some stuff, maybe to head up fishing on a hot holiday or something, you still can't really find much ocean stuff. So it's kind of, lots of the stores around here are more just kind of for what's in the area, right? Which does make sense because that's going to be most of the stuff. But when you have a store like yours that offers that availability for, even though it's maybe a smaller part of the fishing in the province, I think that's a huge help to lots of us in the province who maybe want to get into it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned, Cabela's, I mean, again, it's such a small portion of what they would probably do. So I think their actual retail space is just better suited for things that are actually going to move, right?
Right.
So it's, as far as fishing is concerned, it's mostly pike and walleye and mostly gear stuff. So as far as I know, I haven't actually been in there lately, but the Cabela's here in Saskatoon is completely like they got rid of all of their fly fishing stuff. Like there's nothing there anymore. So
Wow.
and they're great guys over there. They send everybody to me. So
Yeah. Perfect.
I appreciate it.
Did you just get to a point where you were too busy in your garage and at home to keep up with like your customers? Is that what made you open up down on Broadway there, or like what made the switch to get out of the house sort of thing?
It was just actually it was an opportunity that came up. I knew the owner of the building, and yeah, it was just a very good opportunity that we worked out, and that was the catalyst to move. And then since then, it's just one of those funny things, right? Like I knew that the business would grow, and having a retail space certainly allows for a more space, more inventory, but there's a lot of people that just, they don't feel comfortable, or it's just kind of weird calling up some guy you don't know and going to his house.
Let me in your garage.
Yeah. Like, and hey, I wanted, especially if you're a little bit more of an introverted person, or, yeah, it's just kind of weird. So, everybody's used to a normal shopping experience. So having that retail space has definitely helped grow that sport. And then also, I think it adds a lot of validity to the online experience too, right? So if somebody's shopping online and they say, well, it's an actual brick and mortar store, you have a little more faith that you're actually going to get the product that you ordered.
Right.
For sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And I was kind of, Jesse's question just kind of brought this up to me. I guess, how did you decide to make that leap into doing the store, even just starting out of your garage? Like I know, like I said off the top, lots of people have probably thought about it, but what made you actually take that leap?
So yeah, interesting, Logan, you said that because that's exactly what I used to think, and I remember when Paul bought the shop back in the late 90s, I was still living in my parents' basement.
Okay.
And just the thought came to my mind. So one day I was like, man, that's kind of cool. And Paul was probably in his 60s at the time, kind of setting up a retirement business, I think, for himself. And I just thought, like, I mean, he's going to be doing it for a while, but he's not going to do it forever. And I thought, man, if he ever sells that, that would be kind of a cool business to run, and it'd be something that I'd be totally into. And then, lo and behold, it just worked out. I had gotten to a point in my career, which was different than what I do now, but where I wanted out really bad, and I was looking at different things. I was going to do some commercial tying, hoping I could make some cash doing that, and went to see Paul, and talking about making, can I get this stuff at a discount and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, you're going to have to talk to the new owner about that. And I said, what are you talking about? Are you selling? And he's like, yeah. And I said, well, if you don't have a buyer, man, I'm in. And I obviously at the time I said, I'm 90%. I gotta finalize the last 10 with my wife and make sure she's cool with it. But, and she was, and yeah, so we made the deal. So it was kind of cool how it all fell together. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you obviously were heavily ingrained into the fly fishing already before that too.
Yeah. So by that point in time, yeah, I was, I had been doing it for, it would have been about, 17 years. I think I picked up my first fly rod in 1995. So just to age myself a little bit, other than the gray in my beard. Yeah, so I'd been doing it for quite some time, and I had, at that time, I'd kind of gotten out of it, but was tying quite a bit. For a brief period of time, it was more just to try it and see. I tied commercial pike flies. Well, I tied pike flies for the fishing hole and wholesale sports back in the day, just for a couple seasons. And it was more just of I don't know, like just to see what would happen. See if there was even any interest in it. If they were, it was kind of one of those things is like, are my flies good enough to actually sell? And I just wanted to see. So, which was a great experience. Like I tied lots and learned lots about tying. So, yeah.
There you go. You have anything else on the intro side of things, Jesse?
No, I think that pretty much is good there. Yeah.
Get into the fishing now. What the people want to hear.
Let's do her. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I know I'm from the outside looking in. I've dabbled in the fly fishing. I go visit my uncle in Calgary, and we go to lots of the streams around there. I've actually, for being in Calgary, I've never fished the Bow, but I've fished lots of the other rivers around there. But I do know, especially in Saskatchewan, like we have lots of different opportunities. We don't have to get into the specifics about like necessarily obviously lakes or stream stuff like that. But as far as right off the hop, like as a good overview of what Saskatchewan has to offer for fly fishing, I think that'd be a good way to get into the fishing side of things.
Yeah. And I think like where I'll start there is kind of what I tell everybody. I mean, I get it almost daily. People come into the shop that, they just see it and they're like, wow, weird fly fishing. And they come in and they say, well, where do you do that here? And everybody kind of, I think the general public kind of has this perception of a river runs through it, that you're casting dry flies to mountain streams, to rising fish. And that obviously we don't have here. So, my response is really anything you catch on a regular rod, you can catch it on a fly rod. So whether it's pike, walleye, lake trout, carp, and our stock trout species. So it's always kind of funny when I say lake trout, people always kind of cock their head and they're like, lake trout, like in spring when they're in shallow? I'm like, no, like you can get them when they're deep. I mean, I've got a buddy that's got a camper at White Swan and we've got them in July, 60 feet. So it's just using different gear, different techniques, different flies to get to where the fish are. But really, the simple answer is that anything you want to go for is fair game on a fly rod,
Yeah, and I couldn't agree
except
more.
for
I
maybe
know
sturgeon.
yes, yeah. Might be in
Might
for a
have a
good
tough
time.
one
Well,
with that.
It'd be awesome. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway.
yeah, yeah. That's one thing I've always said with fly fishing, and I haven't got to do it as much lately. But I think that's the purest way to feel the strength of a fish. You think that's fair?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think so. It's just it's more one-on-one. Yeah. Like it's you and the fish. It's not, you don't, I mean, the gear is obviously come a long way from bamboo rods or fiberglass rods or anything like that. And with the new reels of large arbors and disc drags, I mean, you got reels that all, put 30 pounds of drag on it and stop potentially 100+ pound tarpon and stuff like that. But you are reeling in one for one. When you're stripping and one hits, it's there. I think you said it perfectly.
That's just with my limited amount, but I always find it cool, and I think when that's the purest way to feel a fish. I also think that fly fishing is possibly one of the purest forms of fishing too. I know there's always that kind of, you see like the memes on Facebook, and it's the fly fisherman versus the gear fisherman, stuff like that, right? And it's kind of the back and forth. But it like anyone that I know that fly fishes, they are usually a fish bum. Like they are deep into that. It's not usually someone who gets out once or twice a year and they don't have as much experience. Like I feel like when you get to fly fishing, it's like you've already done a lot in the conventional area and now you want another challenge. And I think that's what makes it pretty cool.
I think that is, for the most part, that is generally where people are at. It is kind of funny sometimes, and I do have people that come in that really don't have any sort of fishing experience, and for whatever reason they just, there's an allure to the art or the science of fly fishing that attracts them. But generally speaking, that is kind of the conversion I see is like you said, somebody's really gone and, they fish a lot, they enjoy it, and they just want to, and I don't want to say take it to a next level. They just want to experience something different. Right. I hate saying that kind of stuff because it kind of lends into that elitist perception that I think fly fishing has had for a long time, and it's not. It's we're nothing special. We're just doing it in a different way,
Yeah.
But
for sure.
But like you said, Logan, it's funny, the gear and the fly fishing thing, and I always see the memes of Will Ferrell in Old School doing his ribbon routine, and that's like I'm one of those guys.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think this is something that Jesse had kind of written down here, and we could be totally oblivious to this, but does Saskatchewan have a large fly fishing community, or is it a very tight knit, smaller community?
It's pretty small. I mean, I was just thinking about this last night, and so I actually I hosted an international fly fishing film festival last night at the Broadway Theater, which was an awesome night, and I think I had 130 people out for it. So
okay.
But if somebody was to say like how many people fly fish in this province, I don't know if I could tell you. Like there's a lot of people that are out there, and they're part of the community, but there's a lot of people that just kind of fly under the radar, and they just like doing it by themselves. And that's kind of one of the things with, I wouldn't say a lot, but yeah, there's a lot of people that fly fish that just like to be, they're flying solo, and they just like to fly under the radar and keep it that way. And I get it. Like that's one of my favorite ways to go, is just like one man's journey, just getting off into the bush by myself. And, it's just me. But
Yeah. Well,
but there
checks
is
out.
also yeah, and there is a big community of, I mean, we've got 3 fly clubs in the province. There's one in Regina, one in Saskatoon, and one in PA. And there's a lot of people in those clubs that have years and years of knowledge as well. So it's kind of one of those things. It's like anything. Like you can, on the social aspect, you can take it to wherever you want. If you want to be involved in clubs, and if you want to be, kind of a social person and get out and be a part of the community, there's lots of opportunities for that. But if you kind of want to just stay on the down low, lots of people do that too. So,
Right.
but I would say that the community itself is definitely growing.
Okay.
And I've seen a big uptick in that in the last, I think COVID had a lot to do with that. I think COVID had a lot to do with outdoor activity in general. And I think just with social media, people see it, and it draws interest there for sure.
Yeah. Very artistic people within the community of fly fishing too. Like some of the things you see on YouTube and the quality of video that comes out of it, just like obviously you would have been showing yesterday. It's amazing. So I could see how that draws people in too.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the funny thing too, is, like I can't remember who it was. They were in the shop a while back, and he was in with his girlfriend and talking about the film festival. And he said something about all of her friends laugh at him whenever he talks about this film festival. They're like, they think, I don't know what they think it is, but anyway, and I tell people it's not just some random dude running around with a GoPro and, it's looking like Blair Witch Project or something like that. Like it is very, very well put together, like amazing cinematography. So, yeah. So, I'll have to send you guys an invite next year when I do it again.
Oh, for sure. Road trip for the
I
guys.
look forward to that.
Saskatoon,
Yeah.
Sure.
even though we come from opposite directions.
I'll make it worth your
Meet you in
while.
the
We'll have an
middle.
after party and have a good time.
There you go. Yeah.
Awesome.
So, Jesse, you want to get into any of the fishing specific talk? Maybe species or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about probably the main thing people fly fish for is our stock trout in this province. I guess we're limited to April till freeze up essentially, but what are some tactics, so to speak, as the season progresses, like talking to just a new fly angler, what would your advice be to them?
Yeah. So again, and you hit it, Jesse. I think that's kind of what most people, pardon me, most people get into fly fishing in this province for is the idea of fly fishing for trout. I guess it's just the quintessential idea of fly fishing has always kind of been for trout. But so here in Saskatchewan, we have 5 stock species. So there's rainbows, brooks, and browns. And then there's 2 hybrid species, splake and tiger trout. And the MOE stocks about 150 different bodies of water across the province. So the majority of them going to be lakes. There are a few creeks spread out throughout the province. But the majority of our trout, our stock trout fishing is going to be still water. So, if we're lucky on a good year, some of those lakes, especially if they're aerated, they're going to come off a little bit early. This year, we'll see. We're probably going to be pretty close to the season dates. But as soon as the ice comes off, you can get in there, and it can be extremely good. It can be very good right off the bat. Fish are moving around. They're in shallow and active. So right off the bat and early in the season, and I would say like from ice off till, usually early July, depending on where you are in the province and how the spring temps are. I kind of have a rule of thumb, like once surface temps start hitting that 70 plus degree mark, Fahrenheit. Sorry, I'm an old, like,
We all use it.
I'm just,
Yeah, I
I'm
think
just one of
everyone
those
runs
guys
Fahrenheit.
like, yeah. Okay, good. Classic Canadian, old Canadian, right? I use metric sometimes and I use imperial other times.
Yeah.
But air temperature is Celsius, water temperature is Fahrenheit. That's just how I work. But anyway, so once surface temp gets past like that 70-degree mark, depending on where I'm fishing, I kind of reel it in. I catch and release pretty well. Like I don't even remember the last time I kept trout. So,
Right.
once you get past that 70-degree mark to revive a healthy fish it's just not going to happen.
It's
And
really
and we
tough
have
on them, eh?
it's really tough on them. They need now, it's not that they're not, it's not like a creek or a river where, the whole column is that temperature. So, you get into really bad situations in the mountains and rivers when, that water temp is hitting that, 68 plus. Well, here, I mean, you got a lake that's 30 feet deep. I mean, they're going to be fine 15 feet down, probably even 5 feet down, and water temperature is going to be fine. But, you cut an 8 pound rainbow and you try and revive them. It's just not going to happen, and you can't bring them in quickly, so they're going to be gassed. So that's kind of just how I do it. That's just my personal rule. So it's not to say that the fishing isn't accessible and or good. It could be. I just don't do it. And then that's usually when I go west. Go fish the mountains for cutthroat, and then here, it usually starts to pick up again September, provided, again, we've got a regular kind of fall, and it just progressively, I think, gets better and better and better the closer you get to freeze up. So,
Okay. Nice.
Sure.
And
then I guess
think
at
that's
that time of year too, there's some of those species are doing their mock spawn as well, and they're fired up and they're colored up beautifully too, which is a great added bonus.
absolutely, yeah. Like you get into some splake or some brook trout that are on reds, and they're just fire trucks. So I mean, they're
Yeah.
they're gorgeous.
Yeah.
They're frustrating sometimes. Like you can see tons of them, and they'll swim by your fly 100 times, and then all of a sudden, it just for some reason it bites at the 100th cast. But when it happens, it's awesome for sure.
Yeah.
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 And then and a lot of our lakes, like that have splake or brook trout, they're dual species lakes too. So those are always good opportunities to be, I mean, one of my favorite ways to fish is with a balanced leech under an indicator or bobber, and you've got an egg sucking leech pattern. Rainbows key in on that too. So yeah, I've caught some really nice rainbows in the fall doing that.
Yeah. And so when you're talking about spawn there, I guess that's an important thing to mention here. We're talking stock trout. It differs. Say we're going outside to regularly spawning trout, then that would be treated a little differently, right? Or seasons close.
Yeah, I guess like in some places here in the so White Swan would be a good example where they close White Swan or Whalen Bay for the lake trout spawn in later in the season. Our stock trout lakes, like they go through the motions, they build reds, they lay eggs, everything happens. It's just generally speaking, the reds silt in and covers the eggs, and they just don't hatch. So
Right.
there's not really a concern about interrupting that hatching.
Right. And that could be different in some of the creeks and streams where they do spawn then.
Yeah. So some creeks in the province, there's a number of them where there has been naturally sustaining reproduction for, well, some of them since the 1930s, so almost 100 years. But a lot of them, even since the 50s. There's one creek in the Narrow Hills that I'm probably wrong on this, but I know it was stocked in the 50s originally, and I don't think it had any supplementation of stocking up until I can't remember, but I'm going to just throw it out there and say like in the last 15 years. So,
Okay.
it's just naturally sustaining brook trout.
Right.
So there, you want to be careful. Don't be walking on reds and, but most of those creeks are still not closed to fishing during that spawn time. I think for the most part, the province sticks to, that April 1st to May 5th, 15th, or whatever else the dates are.
Right. Yeah, and I guess going from that, when you said you kind of stop fishing for the stock trout, I guess that's a good way to transition into maybe you're not fishing for the stock trout, but maybe you're going to be going for pike or walleye or carp, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, and yeah, like going for pike, I mean, obviously springtime when those big girls are in shallow is a great way to fish for them with a fly rod. You don't really need any special fly lines, like you're not getting down deep or anything. A floater will probably do it, a floating fly line, or even an intermediate sink. So an intermediate sink's going to sink at a rate of about 1.5 inches per second. A pretty effective fly line to use when they're, surface to 10 feet, surface to 7 feet. But walleye for sure. So they're, depending on where they are, if they're deeper, let's say 15, 20 feet, using full sink lines. So a full sinking line is going to be a line that's impregnated with tungsten dust, and it just has different densities. So we'll have fly lines that float, obviously, and they have microscopic air bubbles in them, so it stays on the surface. And then different densities, like I mentioned, an intermediate sinking at 1.5 inches per second. Next down would be 3, 4 inches per second, 5, 6, 7 inches per second. So you can fish deep with a lot of these lines. And a number of years ago, we used to do a dad kid trip, and it was more dad's getting out and having a few pops and let the kids run wild. But like we went out, my buddy's like, "What are you doing with that fly rod, man? Come on." I'm like, "Yeah, you do you, I'll do me, man." And at the end of it, and he's not known to be to pull punches at all. So he was like, "Man, I was actually pretty impressed. You slayed walleye this weekend." And yeah, they were sitting down at about 15 feet. Of course, he got down faster, but as soon as I was in the zone, they were on. So yeah, super. And it can be a really effective and fun way to fish for them. But then, like you said, mentioned carp. I mean, I think that's an underutilized fishery in the province, and it's something that I really want to start getting into, because I mean they're crazy. They're big. They fight like mad. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess you were saying you're looking to get into it. Would you have much to speak on that topic? Because I've got a carp spot where I fish them conventionally, conventionally carp wise, but I was thinking that would be a great way or a great place. It's like 3.5, 4 feet deep, be an awesome place to fly fish. And would you have any tips for targeting carp?
Not much, but I'd say you want some decent gear, like an 8-weight. At minimum 8-weight with a reel with a decent drag, because they run hard. And casting accuracy is going to be pretty important. I've caught one.
Okay. So we've got experience.
Yeah, I got experience, sure, let's say it. But so you're kind of just and I think that's how I was doing it with a guy in Regina. It was just sight fishing for him. So it makes it really exciting, because you're fishing for him, you can see him, you're trying to put that fly in the right, in that pie plate, in their kind of zone of feeding, and you're just letting it sit and waiting for them to pick it up. And then when it's there, it's, it just breaks loose. So.
Right. Yeah, and that's all hell breaks loose in that shallow water. So I guess the main thing there, as far as a fly goes, we're talking only a couple feet of water, so you're using a wet fly for them?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So something that's weighted. You could get, like, where you're fishing in that couple feet of water, a floating line is fine. but you do need to have a weighted fly. So usually like a bead-headed fly, maybe a tungsten bead, a fairly heavy hook. A lot of the carp flies that I have in the shop tend to sit inverted, so they're tied on like a jig hook. And a lot of the bulk of the fly is going to be kind of on the bottom side with rubber legs or something, so they kind of sit up. So when they come in and they suck it up, then strip set and hang on.
I was going to ask if it was inverted. I didn't know that was the term for it, so I'm happy you used that because I didn't know the technical term for it. So because I was I was thinking either a leech
really
pattern
the technical term, but I'll say it.
Yeah, no, that works. I think that works. If it's coming from you at the fly fishing side of things, that's now the term. You've coined it. So
it's now the term. Yeah.
Yeah. So is that as far as the presentation? Are we talking like you mentioned legs? Is this more of like a nymph or more of a leech or just something other than that?
Yeah, like I mean, well, some they'll imitate crayfish. Some like I don't know, they don't really look like anything to me, but yeah.
So we're not matching the hash.
Yeah. No, not at all. I don't know what they're really eating down there. I suspect, nymphs, shrimp, whatever's crawling around in the mud, leeches, stuff like that. So yeah, like the flies I have in the shop, no, they don't really look like anything. Sorry, Jesse, go ahead.
As like you were saying, it's probably the more important thing is finding that active feeding fish. And like you said, getting your cast exactly where it needs to be. And if they're feeding, they're just going to pick it up. Doesn't really matter as long as it looks somewhat like some food. You're probably going to be at business, right?
That's what I would say. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's a prairie redfish.
Yeah. Or like Saskatchewan bonefish, right? Like,
yeah,
it's and they're smart, like they're weary, they're not, you can't just slap a cast down over top of them and big, sloppy, ugly cast. Like they're going to spook off super easy. So,
right. Yeah. And I've seen some videos on YouTube before where they're fishing them in the Great Lakes in the crazy clear water. It's not the waters of Buffalo Pound or something, but they actually are like, they're almost acting predatory. Like they are going after these flies that they're fishing with rather than just plopping it right down in front of them. Like they were going at these flies. I'm like, well, why can't that be around here? But if it would feel pretty good to put that right in the right spot and just watch them suck it up and then set that hook. So maybe it's better here.
And yeah, I've seen videos like that too. And I was actually talking to a guy in the shop. He fishes Last Mountain a lot, and like he really gets it. He knows what's going on. And and we were talking about it too. Like I've seen a guy, I don't know where he's from. He's in the States. I follow him on Instagram, and he's catching them on hoppers in the summertime. And
wow.
But this gentleman that came into the shop, he said, yeah, I've never had it happen. Like chucking it to them, and they just, I don't know, for whatever reason, they don't come up. So I don't know. I can't explain that, but that would be pretty awesome, catching a 20-pound carp on a hopper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, we've got them big here. Like we definitely have huge ones in Saskatchewan, so we're lucky that way. And when you find them, you usually find lots of them. So that's the nice thing as well. It's just, I guess, if the water's going to be clear enough now for you to, because where I go in the spring, I fish them because my spot gets weeded out by the time summer comes. But it's just muddy water. I can see their backs basically. And like you said, they're smart. Like I have to park the boat and walk about 500 yards to get to my spot. And it's actually impressive how much they'll spook and stuff, even though I can't really even see them. But then all of a sudden you see a cloud come up and another cloud. And you got to be pretty careful with them for a fish that really doesn't get much respect elsewise or other ways from fishermen, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like they are weary fish. So for my day job, a couple years ago, I went down to Regina for one of the farm shows in June. And I know a few guys down there, so they took me out. We were just fishing Wknd Creek, like right in town. And the first time I was down there, I could not believe how little it took to spook those fish off.
Yeah. especially for how big they are too.
Yeah, yeah.
And they've got armor like crazy, so not like much is really going to get a hold of them either.
Yeah, it's weird. And yeah, like even last year, I mean, water was high and it was murky, and a lot of respect to those guys. Like, they're good at spotting them, but like, yeah, I just okay, well, there's one, and we try and sneak up on it, and it's gone.
Yeah, yeah, I've done it.
So
I've done it here in Moose Jaw, walking the river, and for anyone around here knows it's not a clear river there either, and it is hard, but it's pretty cool being in your own backyard, walking these rivers, and kind of you can pretend like you're in the mountains, other than the water's the total opposite of clear, and there's no mountains, but it's pretty cool still having those opportunities to do that around here. And then I'm sure the farther north you get into some better areas and stuff like that too, and you can kind of pretend. Like maybe you're in the foothills if you get around enough trees and you're kind of out of the way. But yeah.
Well, yeah,
no,
and like I mean, it's kind of funny for the carp thing. Like, I mean, I don't wish this, but I kind of wish there was a pond in Saskatoon that had carp in it, because like I'd be out there like a dirty shirt all summer long. But
yeah, the fight's
anyway,
great.
Again, it's not something that I really want to happen, but I got to go south for that. So anyway,
right. Yeah. So, and I guess one species we haven't mentioned, and it's not really fished for very much, but we would be kidding ourselves if we didn't mention that there's also grayling that are a huge fly species as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So northern Saskatchewan, and I'm terrible. I don't know the closest drivable one. But yeah, once you get into that northern water, grayling are an awesome fly fishing species. They love dry flies. They're active. They love to feed. So yeah, it's absolutely an opportunity here. Yeah,
Have you
and
caught
you don't
one?
have to.
Sorry,
Go
I
ahead.
was gonna ask Jesse if he's caught one in the province. Didn't you?
I
In your video?
did, but not on the fly. I had brought up my 6 weight there, and I think the water was just a little too warm, and they were deep in the runs, and I just didn't have enough. I think all I brought was my floating line with me, actually, and I just couldn't get down to them. But yeah, that was up on the Haltane River. If someone wants to drive up there and go catch grayling, have at her.
All the way up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's something to mention too with them. I know in talking to some of my friends in the science fields, those are pretty, I don't want to say wimpy, but they're pretty delicate fish. Would that be fair to say as far as catching and releasing goes?
Yeah,
I
they're
think
wimps.
so. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay. Yeah, so that's a good thing
Yeah,
to mention if you're going for them.
Yeah, fight them quick. I mean, I think it just goes without saying with any species, fight them as quick as possible, and proper fish handling goes a long way. Don't pull them up on shore and let them smash around the rocks and get full of mud and dry grass and take pictures of them. Like keep
Right.
them in the water, keep them wet.
Yeah, you'd hate to
for
see the
sure.
colors of the grayling. I'd rather see grass and mud on them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the photo
Yeah, no,
everybody
that's-
wants.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm way strong. Yeah. So I guess I'm kind of interested in, I know we have a lot of walleye fishermen who listen to this podcast. I've done up north at Otter Lake there in Mississippi. We do a family trip. I've fly fished and landed walleye there. Same thing as you in about that 15, 20 foot range. I was just luckily patient enough. I don't think I really had the best setup for it, but I would just let it sink in the same places I was jigging them. And like you said, when they see that different presentation, it's like money compared to a jig and a minnow that everyone's been putting down there for years, right? So what kind of setup and tactic would you suggest for targeting walleye on the fly?
Yeah. So, and I think you nailed it there. I think with a fly, especially versus like, a jig and a minnow, or a jig head, where you're having very abrupt movements if you're jigging, right? Whereas a fly is generally going to have a much more natural movement in the water. So, a really good presentation is having a sinking line. So, let's say a type 5 sinking at about five inches per second. and using that with a relatively short leader, 4.5 to 6 foot leader. And the leader is a monofilament leader that's tapered from a thick butt section from the fly line down to a smaller section, like, I don't know, 0.008 of an inch or something like that. Okay. And then using, one of my favorites is using a fly called a booby, and it's basically just multiple different colors, but it's got foam eyes at the front, so it floats. So you've got your sinking line kind of right on the bottom, but then you've got that booby that's just, a couple inches off the bottom, and it's just, slow stripping, and it's just coming in with a really nice natural movement. Okay. Generally speaking, if they're sitting on the bottom, it's going to be right in the zone. Another tactic could be using balanced leeches. So, I had mentioned before, it's one of my favorite ways to fish for trout, but I think a really effective way to fish for walleye too. So it's basically bobber fishing, right? You're just using a bobber with a leech that's tied on a jig hook. So, and then what I'll do, I should have had one out, but anyway, it's tied on a jig hook, and then we'll tie in a sequence pin with a tungsten bead to extend past the jig, so that when it's tied onto your line, it sits horizontal in the water. Okay. And as that, when you've got a nice chop, as the bobber moves up and down with the chop, your fly just has a nice natural undulation in the water. And again, if you're marking them at 10, 12 feet, set your indicator at 10, 12 feet, chuck it out, and again, it's bobber fishing, so you just wait for that bobber to go down and set. So
yeah, I got to get out the balanced leash train. I've heard so much for years about them, and I know what they are. I've just never picked any up. But whether it's through the ice or your stocked lakes in non-moving water, or now the walleye, it's like it kind of seems to be a catch-all for lots of fish.
I think so, and I've heard lots of people using it, through the ice too. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I was using, I liked that booby tactic you talked about, because that's kind of a lot lesser used thing in gear fishing, is those floating jigs. I know that I've seen some people using them for walleye and stuff, but not many people actually run that. It's usually just straight to the jig to the bottom. But I like that you can kind of be in that strike zone with them, like they can come up off bottom, and you're not going to really be getting snagged near as much either, right?
Yeah, not really. I mean, depending on where you are, I don't think so. I mean, if you're in a rocky bottom or something, you don't have your jig smashing in and wedging into the rocks or anything. It's just line, so it's just going to kind of snake through.
Yeah, and when I was doing it, it was just a bunny leech with like some tungsten eyes, and that is what got me down. And I think I probably had a longer leader than you had mentioned there, but it's like it got me down, and you're able to, I think we were drifting. We didn't have an anchor at the time, so we were just drifting with it, and I just let it sink, and by the time I was stripping it back in, it kind of allowed, it's almost like a small troll kind of thing, but at least you're down in that zone, right? So definitely would recommend it.
Yeah, and that's another good tactic too, right? So using a bunny leech or something like that, a streamer pattern, something that represents a minnow or a leech. If you've got a floating line, something heavy with dumbbell eyes to sink down. And if you've got a floating line, then I would recommend using a longer leader, right? Because you need more leader to sink down, to pull that floating line down. Pardon me. If you're using a sinking line, then a shorter leader, and maybe less weight on the fly. Let the line sink the fly, or try and have them weighted somewhat similar so they're sinking together at the same rate. But
yeah, no, that's fair. And I think that kind of, I don't know if you have anything else to ask on any of the species, Jesse.
I was just gonna say that rig we're talking about for the walleye, it's essentially just a bottom bouncer rig, but way simpler and just as effective. Like essentially, that's what you're mimicking, right? I love that idea. That's awesome.
Yeah, it just takes longer to get get there, right? So
For sure.
instead of
Yeah.
being down
Yeah,
on the
it's not
bottom
a
instantly, it's going to take 30
yeah,
seconds. But yeah,
for sure.
Then you can have a sip of a pop while that's happening.
While you wait.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. And I guess kind of trying to maybe, I guess for lack of a better term, sell people on fly fishing. I know in going out with my uncle and stuff, say we hit up, I guess it's a popular one, so it doesn't matter, heading to Alberta and hit up the Old Man or something like that. And he's talking about, like, everyone, like you said, sees the fly fishing. It's the back and forth. It's the dry fly on top. It's the trout sipping it off the top there. And he said, really, that's maybe like 10% of lots of the fly fishing. Lots of it's definitely under the surface. So kind of in your eyes, where does fly fishing kind of shine as far as a, whether it's a positive tactic, a good way to catch fish, or just in general, something that really stands out about fly fishing?
I think for me, and I'm not sure if that's really why people get into it, but it tends to be something that people grow into and eventually find is that it's one of those things that you just never stop learning. You know, depending on how deep down that rabbit hole you want to go, it can never stop. And it's one of those things that I tell people in the shop is my two main rules in the shop is catch fish, have fun. Like, it doesn't have to be harder than that. And let's not get into, again, that idea, this elitist kind of thing, that it has to be done a certain way and that you have to cast and you can't troll and you can't, that's not even fly fishing using a bobber and all that. Like, it's, anyway,
Is there a fly in the water?
Soapbox here. Yeah, exactly. Is there a fly on the water? Are you catching fish? And keep it legal.
Yes.
Yeah.
and respect the fishery. Like, I'm not going to make too many rules, but respect the fishery and respect what you're doing. But that I've had customers come into the shop that have bought rods, and we start talking about casting and things like that. And the one specifically comes to mind, and he said, I'm going to stop you right there, man. I don't know how to cast. I'm like, okay. And he said, we troll flies with sinking lines and we fish for trout. And he said, I don't know if I really care to ever learn how to cast. I just really enjoy catching trout on a fly rod. It's more fun than catching it on a regular rod. And I was like, right on, man. Again, are you catching fish? Yeah. Are you having fun? Yeah. Good. You're doing it right. That's all it has to be. And if you only want to ever do it that way, and that's as far down the rabbit hole as you want to go, that's fine. But if you do want to start getting into, different casting techniques, there's just so many aspects to it that you can never stop learning. And it's not any dissimilar from regular fishing. There's lots of different ways to use gear. There's lots of different techniques. There's lots of different species to fish for. But I think when you add into, tying your own flies, especially, the idea of fly fishing, I think kind of started with mimicking or imitating the natural food source that trout are eating. And we use trout in this case, but so you start getting into entomology and trying to understand their food sources, and you start looking at different insects' life cycles, and mayflies and chironomids and dragonflies and all of that kind of stuff. And then you start throwing into different species, salmon, steelhead. You start getting into the saltwater game, carp, whatever else. Like, it's just that's what I like about it. And I've been doing it for almost 30 years now, and I guess 30 years now, and I'm still learning new things every day, even though I own a fly shop, and I still am always learning new things, learning new patterns to tie. I've been going down to steelhead patterns recently, and it's awesome. I'm loving it. It's painstaking, takes it takes me forever to tie one fly. My wife was like, so you've been at this for like 2 months now. How many have you tied? I'm like, oh, well, like 7.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just is what it is. So that's what does it for me. And I think for everybody, it's different. And that's the way it should be. Everybody's an individual, and you do it however you want to do it.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I got fly tying set up from my uncle. He ties lots of his in Calgary, and I dabbled in that. I'm looking at it right now. It's in a box since we've moved to this house, and I'm like, I really need to get that set up on the table. It's just kind of a fun thing to do, and there's nothing cooler than catching on your own fly, especially if it's one that you just kind of came up with. I don't think this will be offensive. There's a road in Calgary called, I think it's Wknd Trail, I believe, or drive, something like that. It's on one of the main ones, and I think it's the exit before to my uncle's house. And so one of the last trips I did up there to go fly fishing, he was working nights, and so I show up that night, and then we go fishing in the morning. And so I tied up this fly, just kind of having fun with it. When you kind of know the basics, I guess you can mess around a bit. And so I named that the pink Wknd. And then I caught a what was it? I think I caught a whitefish on it or something down at the Old Mountain. I was like, that was pretty cool. I had no idea really what I was tying, but it ended up coming with that. And it won't be on shelves anytime soon. It's a one of one, but it's just got it. It's something you can't really do as much with the gear stuff, right? You can get into some customization with that, but the world you can get into with tying. Do you tie at all, Jesse?
I don't know, but it does interest me for sure. Something to get into later when I have a little more free
time. I thought that's where all your hair maybe went.
Yeah. Just trim my mustache hair.
Yeah. No, that's good.
I always tell people too, like, we live in Saskatchewan. What else are you going to do in January?
Yes.
Darn good
have
point.
A pop, tie some flies, and dream of warmer days.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think that kind of wraps up lots of the fishing talk. I guess before we kind of get into more of the actual fly shop and some of the specifics there, is there anything that you kind of run into a lot with questions or anything along those lines that you think would be good to mention to some of the listeners, as far as whether it's the species or anything like that we maybe didn't touch on?
I think we covered most of that. I think, any other questions that would regularly come up in the shop is, I want to get into it, but I don't know what I need. And then of course, there's all the fly fishing jargon that's just really, really, people.
Yeah, I guess we could have done that a little bit.
Everybody's head.
Right.
And that's kind of a rabbit hole that could be a whole other episode. Right. But, generally speaking, what I tell people really quickly is if you're going after trout in the province, in Saskatchewan, a 9-foot 6 weight is a really good starting point. The industry tends to lean to a 9-foot 5 weight, but the majority of the industries, U.S. based, but even in Calgary or Alberta, so a big majority of the industry is going after that quintessential mountain stream, cutthroat, rainbow, brook trout, that kind of stuff. And 9-foot 5 weight's fine. Here in Saskatchewan, I mean, we're generally chucking bigger rigs, where
bigger fish.
You have the ability to catch much larger fish here in our lakes. And you guys are from here, it's always windy. So you're always fighting wind.
Yeah.
So just having that 9-foot 6 weight gives you a little bit more backbone to punch through it, to cast bigger rigs, and then of course to fight bigger fish. If you're specifically and I have lots of people that come into the shop that are they just want to catch pike on the fly, like they don't care about trout. Pike, you're kind of starting at that 9-foot 8 weight, 9.9 or a 9.10, and that's a 9-foot 8 weight's generally going to be more than enough to handle pike, or like any pike, but getting into the 9-foot 9 weights or the 9-foot 10 weights, then you just have a little bit more ability to chuck big junk, right? Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
But,
And
and that generally covers it for the most part.
right. And that kind of made me think. I know when I first started wanting to target pike, it was I need to find the biggest flies I can find, and that's just what you need. Watching fly versus jerk, and it's like this is what I need is some of the big flies, right? And then going up north and guiding with Jesse, and we're tossing these. I mean, some of them are okay size, but for what I was thinking I needed for size, we're tossing these couple inch black flies, and these 40+ inch pike are gobbling them up like nothing. I was like, okay. I don't need to be busting my arm trying to cast this big fly. I can size down quite a bit and do just as well. So that's one thing I would like to mention. I don't know if you have anything to touch on that.
Oh, I think you nailed it. Yeah, like you don't need to be exactly busting your shoulder all day, casting a wet sock. Like sometimes, but yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily need big flies to catch big fish. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's good. You got anything else on the fish, Jesse? Or we're going into business?
Well, talking about like the lingo of fly fishing, maybe just touch on the weight class of a rod, because we're saying 5 weight, 6 weight, 8 weight. Maybe there's some people out there that aren't familiar with the term, and just talk about what that means essentially.
Yeah, for sure. So yes, and there again, the fly world, we just talk in our world, and doesn't necessarily mean anything to anybody else. So sorry about that. But yeah, so basically, our rods are weighted in a numerical system. So the smaller the number, the lighter the rod. The bigger the number, the heavier the rod. So I would say, like a 3 or a 4 weight would be like an ultralight spinning rod. Great for chucking little meps, catching smaller fish. Whether it's perch or grayling or something like that. A 6 weight's kind of right in the middle for the most part. So it'd be like a medium action spinning rod. You're going to chuck a 5 of diamonds, but you can also chuck a jig, rubber tail, something like that. And then, getting into the 8s or the 10s, it's going to be more of a heavy action spinning rod and it's not even necessarily always about chucking big gear. It's also about, the size of fish that you're landing. So again, getting back to the carp conversation, we're not throwing big flies for carp, but you're dealing with a really strong fish. So an 8 weight or a 10 weight is something to have. In the case of pike, maybe not necessarily as strong, but you're chucking big gear. So you need that backbone to throw it.
Right. Yeah. Gotcha. And I think that's good to touch on. And then kind of going into the business side of things now, that's why when you go into Purity Flyco, you're going to want to get a 3 weight, a 6 weight, and a 9 weight and walk out of there with those, because like the coolest thing, one of the things I like about fly fishing is, especially when you're going to some of the rivers and streams, it's kind of dependent on each one, right? Like if I go to stream 1, I'd be pumped with, we'll say, 10-inch cutty. And then when I go to stream 2, it could be a whole different class of fish, and you kind of want to be ready for that. Or I guess I should use brook trout, right? You want the 3-4 weight for the brookies, and you're happy to catch a 8-incher out of that stream, something like that, right? Like you kind of want to be covered. So if you are going there, may as well pick up a couple rods.
You might as well. Yeah.
And they're great for travel as well. Kind of diving into that. I bought a setup. It was, and because you're usually breaking down into, well, at least for the travel for sure, 4 pieces. Like mine fits in any suitcase I have, and it can go wherever. I think it's is it a 5-6 weight, something like that. And I don't know what I'm going to get into. I've taken it to Costa Rica. I don't think I had it before I went to Hawaii. I would have liked to take it there, and it could handle for the most part what I think I would get into. And if I get into something bigger, I guess I got other trouble, but they're great for travel. So I guess that's another thing to touch on too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, back in the day when I first started, 2 pieces were pretty common. So on a 9-foot rod, you got a 4.5-foot section. Mm-hmm. It didn't travel so well. Now I don't think I have any suppliers that make 2-piece rods anymore. Everything's
Okay.
4-piece. There's a few travel rods out there that break down into six pieces. Not many anymore. Hardy made a few. I don't think they even have any in their. Well, maybe they've got a few. I've actually got like one of my spay rods. It's a 13.5 footer, and it's a 6-piece. So it's super nice. Like I can put it in my bag, or I can even check it. Like, or I can take it on as a carry-on. But so yeah, they do travel really well.
And very, very light too. Like I took my, was it? I should remember. I think it's a 3-weight. And I took that on the Crypt Lake hike in Waterton up there. And it's a pretty good long hike. And I had that just behind my back in my backpack with the reel, got up there, had it together in a minute or two and was fishing. And it wasn't lugging up a bunch of heavy stuff or anything like that. So they're a lot more versatile, I would say, too, in getting into certain areas, because you are hiking that's kind of the name of the game for lots of fly fishing too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the rods and reels, that's pretty similar, I think, to regular tackle. But, where you're really saving on space and weight is, when you went to that lake, you probably had a little fly box. And I mean, in a fly box that big, you could have 200
More than I'll
flies,
ever use.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, you're not lugging a suitcase full of different spoons and lures and stuff and a bunch of lead or whatever, right? So
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah. I'm not flying up pounds of lead to Lac La Marte to troll for lake trout.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, that's good. So are you good with it if we talk about the business stuff a little bit?
Sure.
Cool. I think that's something that lots of us are interested. We mentioned it a couple times throughout. Actually, I did in one of my entrepreneurship classes in my 4th year university. It was you had to come up with a business, find an actual space, do this, do that. And me and my partner, we did a tackle shop, but couldn't really find any information that you didn't have to pay for as far as figuring out like the cost for things and all that. But we still passed, so that's all that matters, I guess. But with that kind of, I regrettably haven't been to the shop yet, but you'd be a one-stop shop. Like I saw on your website, you've got even the inflatables, right, for the boats and everything. So what all can people find to get themselves set up in your shop?
Yeah, it's all there. Especially for fishing here in Saskatchewan. Obviously, like we talked about, rods and reels, different types of fly lines, waders, boots, inflatables. If you're getting into fly tying, I've got it all right
All the
there,
material.
from the vices, the tools, tying materials. Again, mostly catering to, I would say, more the prairie or the still water angler. But I mean, there is, I do carry things to get your dry flies for going out to the east slopes or into the mountains or whatever too. So, yeah, pretty much one-stop shop for sure. I don't, aside from, on the Stillwater side, we're no different. We like our, well, I do anyway. I mean, there's some guys that I guess don't, but I like my electronics, so I don't carry that stuff, but.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Get a tricked out inflatable out there and it could be
Yeah.
could be good to go.
Oh yeah.
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 Yeah. And I guess for Jesse, maybe touch on your experience going in there into the shop, because you picked up some stuff, right?
Yeah. So I think the first time I stopped in there would have been like 2021, I want to say. I was looking to get into, fly fishing. And like prior to going in and talking with Colin, my only experience with it was from fly fishermen I had in my boat guiding, which generally their skill level isn't, or knowledge of it isn't super high. And then just of the chatting.
What do you
with
mean?
guys. Oh, you know what I mean, Logan.
Yeah, wearing them off of my head and my chest.
Yeah.
Now,
Hood up,
is that
glasses.
from your perspective, Jesse, or is that from their perspective that they don't know anything?
That's
Sorry,
my
I just-
perspective. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, sure. Theirs was quite a bit different, but anyway, yeah.
For sure. We don't have to get into that. But so anyway, didn't have a ton of knowledge on it. And yeah, went in there and basically, I think I was in your shop, Colin, for damn near 3 hours that first time. And you set me up with a 6 weight graze and everything I needed. And I was out catching my first trout on it that spring. And then I took it up to Lac La Marte with me the following, actually, no, I think it might have been that summer, 2021. And I brought it up just to kind of like fart around with and maybe catch a couple pike up shallow. And my first time bringing out my fly rod up there on my very first cast, my fly rod snaps and it was like the second section above the butt. So I didn't even get to catch a fish on it up at Lac La Marte. But I emailed you right away and you were like, yeah, no problem. Here's the warranty form and we'll get it shipped off and get you a new one sent, brought in. And so that was super helpful as well. And I thank you for that. And I had the exact same thing happen to me the following year. I snapped the fly rod again. So
That could
I
be
just was
user
on a
error
string
at
of,
that point.
man, I was starting to think so, but like, no, I was just using a 4-inch bunny leech. Like, it's just silly.
No.
Silly.
Well,
But
Colin,
not,
you'd like this. The first year Jesse went up guiding, guess what he didn't bring? Any fishing gear.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
didn't bring a rod or a
Any
a
at
lure,
all. Okay,
nothing.
well,
At all. I brought spreaders and pliers and sunglasses, and that was about it. I didn't think I'd have time for
hopefully a change
fishing,
of
as
underwear.
weird as that sounds. Yeah, of course. I brought at least 2.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We were talking about that last episode. I was like, I brought 2 fly rods up because there's grayling. People are talking about these grayling, and it turns out it's a full day trip. And yeah, you don't get there's no time for a full day to go. So they didn't even, I think I got my 8-weight ready and casted that around a bit, but yeah, nothing for grayling there. But I figured you'd enjoy that. But yeah, you basically got Jesse set right up there, and I've seen you using you always had the fly rod around with you when I was up there too.
Yeah, like
So
this
it's
following
definitely,
year,
yeah.
I got set up with a 10-weight. And that is fantastic. I was able to get it onto my biggest pike in my life and then onto some awesome lake trout during the spawn this fall. So yeah, it got a good bend in her a few times.
There you go.
Yeah, that's
There you go.
awesome, man. And I remember when you came in, man, and not to not to shy anybody away from the shop, but yeah, a 3-hour stint in there is pretty common. And that's what I love about it, right? Like I don't know, I think it was this week, Thursday, there was probably like 5 guys in there just hanging out, just shooting the breeze and
Yeah.
anxious for fishing. So
Talking about fishing.
that's kind of, yeah, exactly. And that's what I love is just, again, kind of being, having a place to build that community. Right. And I always said when I started it, I wanted it to be similar to my experience when I was a 13, 14-year-old kid and I was really into skateboarding. And I used to hang out at Doug's Spoken Sport like every Saturday. And I'd make my dad drive me down there. And I probably I'd hang out there for 3 hours and buy like $2 worth of stickers to put on my skateboard and just annoy everybody. But that's kind of what I wanted to create for guys like me that like, I can't skateboard anymore. I'll break a hip or something. But, you know, just for guys that are really into it to just hang out and yeah, have a cool space to do it. So
It's funny you say that because I feel like that almost is a lot of guys. They were kind of in that skateboarding, longboarding crowd when they were younger, and then they're fly fishermen later on. Like I feel like that's a common thing.
it is. It's crazy. And again, I don't know. I think social media's done a lot for that. You know, certainly some of the pro fly fishers out there, like people that are sponsored. There's a lot of crossover too. Like there's a lot of sponsored fly fishers that were pro snowboarders, pro BMXers, pro skiers, that kind of stuff too. So it I don't know, it's weird. It tends to attract that crowd a bit.
Yeah. And with that, I guess that's where a brick and mortar store helps. Like when you said, when you switched over, that was probably a big part of it. And if someone's showing up to the shop, are you there full time, or like can people, I'm sure, expect to run into you if they go there obviously enough, but kind of what's your time there look like?
So I'm still the only, well, for the most part. I do have help once in a while when I get away, which isn't all that often. But I do run it part time, so my hours are really weird. I do have a day job, so generally for the summertime, my hours are Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Saturday 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Sunday 12 to 4.
Okay.
And then I close Monday, Tuesday. Then over the winter, I like to take Sundays off. So I close Sunday, Monday. That's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday evening, Saturday.
Okay.
It's mostly so I can sit on my couch and watch football instead of sitting in the shop and watching football.
There you go. No, that's fair. And I guess with that, like I know talking to some other people that are kind of the similar thing is, yeah, would that have been something you didn't think about as much when you started? Like something you didn't realize is how much time you'd actually be spending there. And like you obviously love the sport, and maybe that starts to dip into when you could have been out fishing.
Yeah, it bites into that time a little bit. But it's kind of funny. Like I almost find it easier to be in the shop and set hours. So when I had it at the house, it was always kind of like I'd hang around just in case somebody wanted to come out, right? And you never knew, like on a Saturday, cutting the lawn and somebody shows up, or I'm, doing something. So I find it a lot easier. I'm here, and I'm not here now. So and there's a lot of days where it's 4 o'clock and it's like, okay, wrap it up. I got to go home. Like, I just find it easier that way. But yeah, it can, but I think at the same time, my clientele gets it, right? Like they fish. So they understand that when I close, it's time to go fishing. Like, what good am I in the shop if I don't get out?
Right. Yeah, you got to keep building that experience. It's work hours.
Exactly. Yeah, like I have to keep learning too, and then also like I got to put in some time at home, and people get that, right? So
yeah, for sure.
Well, I've said it time and time again, and one of my cousin actually helps me out in the shop from time to time when I'm gone, or when I do a class or whatever. And he says it, and I've said it all the time, is like my clientele are just awesome. I couldn't ask for better people to deal with. And Jesse, like, you're an awesome dude. I still remember that. That was 3 years ago, and I remember you coming in and had a great conversation, and that's what I love about it. Like everybody's pretty chill, and it's kind of one of those things. Like, yeah, we love our sport, and it doesn't matter what you do, what kind of fish you go after, and what kind of gear you use. If you're into fishing, you're into fishing, and we all get it. But at the end of the day, it's just fishing. Like, it's not, if you don't get a pack of leaders for this weekend, your world's not ending. Nobody's life is on the line. We're just fishing. So, and everybody gets it, and everybody's really chill on that. So it's awesome. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better clientele. They're awesome people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I think that kind of made me realize too, I know there is some competitions as far as fly fishing, but it's not like anything near, say, your walleye tournaments or stuff like that, right? Like there is some kind of, I've heard about a while ago, there is some kind of tournaments or stuff like that for fly fishing, right?
There are, and I'm not really in on that. Like, I don't follow it. I know there's like the Canadian fly fishing team. and I don't know
Yeah.
the parameters behind it. And then they
Yeah.
go to England, or they go to Europe, and they do, nationals and stuff, and different casting competitions. There's the one I do like watching is the spey casting competition, and I mean it's crazy impressive. There's actually, I believe, maybe I'm wrong on this. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but a gentleman out of BC, Tim Arsenault, he's an amazing caster, and I believe he won nationals this past year.
Okay.
And I mean, this guy's putting 180-foot casts out there. It's insane.
Oh, okay. Right. And
With a space
and-
style cast, not a single overhead cast, but yeah.
Right. And the
Still.
only reason I brought that, the only reason I brought that up was because I think that could result in the difference in clientele too. You don't have some tournament angler who their bow mounted trolling motor just went fritz the night before tournament, and they want you there working on it till midnight, right? You've got a lot more chill set of clients. They're going out to walk around the lake, to walk around the river. They've got lots of the stuff they already need, right? Like I think that's where a big difference could come in as well with your customers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like there's no purse on the line. There's no, it's expensive, right? Yeah. Like our gear can be expensive, but nobody's riding around in a, $100,000+ boat.
No, if anything, they're riding around in a $100,000 Sprinter that they camp out of to go fishing, but
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
all leisure, right? It's all leisure. So I think that's the main thing. And did you have something, Jesse?
No, I was just going on.
Okay, yeah, no, I was gonna ask what as far as running your own place, how much did you realize you had to do as far as sourcing things and bringing in different brands? Like how much of a learning curve was that side of things?
Honestly, well, yeah, that's hard for me to, I guess, remember. So when I bought the shop 12 or 13 years ago, a lot of those relationships had already been made. So, part of the goodwill of the shop, if you will. And,
Right.
so I already had a fairly decent network of suppliers to deal with. And also being, in my own house where it wasn't crazy busy, I didn't have a ton of inventory. It was one of those things that I could take time learning. And it really wasn't like just jumping into the deep end and all of a sudden like, oh man, well, I'm over my head. I could take my time building that and building those relationships. So finding those people wasn't really all that difficult because most of those relationships were already there with the previous owner. So that was really easy for me. Going forward, like moving into the new space, certainly I expanded a lot of the brands that I represent. And like I don't know, I guess I'm kind of one of those analytical people, so I did a little bit of research and what's the current marketplace like, how many Canadian dealers do we have for this particular rod company, and made my decisions there. So yeah, like finding the suppliers I don't think was really all that challenging to me. I think the biggest challenge for me, and it takes a lot of time, is running preseason orders. Most of that stuff happens in the fall from September to November. Yeah, it's a lot of work, going through, okay, well, what did I sell this year? What sold? What didn't? What do I think I'm going to sell this year? How many of this do I need? I sold 5 of these last year. Should I bring in 8? I don't know. Maybe. Well, this is a cool new T-shirt. Is it? I bring it in. Does it? And just because I think it's cool doesn't mean that anybody else thinks it's cool. So that's always kind of a challenging thing. Is what works and what doesn't work. And some, I think maybe I got a wrong attitude on it, but it's just sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, and that's just the way it is. So
Right. No, that's fair. That's fair. I do think, talking about the clothing, fly fishing has some of the coolest clothing, whether it's hat, shirts, hoodies out there. Like it's the designs and stuff people come up with are pretty sweet.
They are, you know, and I don't know, like it kind of gets back to your point, Logan, before of it. Sometimes I think it does attract somewhat artistic people, and that really shines through in a lot of that stuff. And then I'm my own worst enemy. I mean, I see I'm a crow, right? Like I see cool stuff and I just got to bring it in, and
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't. But you know, a couple years ago, I get my wife to help me set stuff out and, you know, organize the shop, and she's good at that stuff. And I said, honey, I need your help. Like I'm not sure where to put a lot of stuff, and I got a lot of hats. And we started putting out hats, and she's like, okay, like, are you done? Is that all? I'm like, no, I have like 10 more styles. And she's like, dude, what are you doing? I think I have a real problem here. She's like,
yeah.
you think? Like, you have a definite problem, man. You got way too many hats. But, you know, at the end of the day, we all fish, we all wear hats. So, anyway, but,
Hats and stickers.
yeah, that could, yeah, hats and stickers and t-shirts. I'm terrible. Like I, again, see cool t-shirts, I bring them in, and it's like, oh my,
Yeah. No, that's fair. And we've had you for an hour and a half here. I know you've had a busy weekend with the shop and the film festival there. Is there anything you had, Jesse, before we kind of close things out here? We've kept calling long enough, I think, here. Not 3 hours like you did in the shop, but
Well, talking about the clothing thing and about how you bring all this sorts in. So last time I was in the shop, I think I brought my sister with me, and we got farting around looking. You were busy with a customer, so we were having a look around, and she spotted an Orvis long sleeve shirt on the wall, and she gets looking at it, and she's like, oh, this would look great on my husband, Randy. And they were going on a trip to Oktoberfest in Germany. And so she bought that. It was kind of like just a style she thought would fit in over there. And he loved it. And I guess he wore they were backpacking. So he wore that shirt the entire time he was in Germany at Oktoberfest.
Nice.
But yeah, so there's more than just fly fishing gear in there. And for people that aren't even fishermen, you might find something that catches your eye.
yeah, for sure. No, that's a good example. I mean, yeah, like you said, once you find that favorite shirt too, it's pretty easy to just wear it and wear it and wear it. And so when it's good quality stuff, that helps too.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, for sure.
And you know, like there's, I guess, you know, shameless plug on that point too, is there's lots of different things that cross over. I mean, being in Saskatchewan, water sports is a big thing. Whether it's just boating or canoeing, kayaking, paddle boarding, all of that stuff. I mean, we don't have that much time. We got a short summer, and people love to be on the beach or on the water as much as they can. So, being fly fishing, of course, being on the water. So, you know, like from waterproof, full submersible bags, all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, it's made for fly fishing, but I mean, it crosses over into canoeing, paddle boarding, all of that kind of stuff too. So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I think that's enough for round one. I could definitely see us having more episodes in the future. I'm sure there's tons of stuff we could talk about, but just to kind of close things out here, kind of once again, where people can find you, like on your website here, it says you guys are the only dedicated fly shop in the province. So I think that's a big thing to mention. And Saskatoon's a pretty obviously big market, and lots of people making trips there, even if they're not from there. So it's definitely something for people to keep in mind if they are making that trip to Saskatoon. But kind of, again, where people can find you, your hours, everything like that, and your social stuff too, so people can follow along on that.
yeah. So, starting with the social, Facebook, Instagram, Purity Fly Co. You can get a hold of me through either one of those means. Contact us page on the website. So the website's just purityflyco.ca. There's a contact us page. Pretty much everything that's in the shop is online. So it's a full e-commerce site. I ship all over Canada. Regularly ship to Regina or anywhere, to be honest. And I'm available. I'm here to help. Like I tell people that all the time. Like if you have questions, please reach out. Like I'm happy to help. It's especially for people that are getting into it. It can be kind of daunting. So that's what I built the business on, is just helping people get set up, and I love helping people that way. So please feel free to reach out. The shop again, just off Broadway. In the back alley of in between, I guess 10th and 11th on the east side of Broadway. So if you kind of look across 10th from Brainsport, you'll find the shop. Somewhat weird hours. So I guess I always tell people it's always best to check my Google My Business page. I do keep it updated when I'm not in the shop. It says on there. So, or, if ever in doubt, just give me a call. If you come by the shop and it's closed and I'm supposed to be open, I apologize. I'm probably fishing.
There you go. Perfect excuse for anyone listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to come on tonight. I know, like you said, that welcoming environment, it obviously shows through this last hour and a half we had here. I think that's a huge thing. It can be intimidating for people, especially newer people walking into something that is a closer knit community, whether it's like the skate community that we were talking a little bit about earlier or something like that, right? So it's nice having that nice environment to walk into. Obviously there to answer any questions, like you said, but we really appreciate you taking the time. It was a busy weekend for you, catching you here on a Sunday evening. So on behalf of myself and Jesse, thank you very much for coming on.
Well, hey guys, thank you so much for having me. And let's get out fishing sometime.
Yeah, I'll come into the store. We'll
that.
pick up some stuff and then we head out fishing.
That'd be good. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Cool. There you have it. Our first sit down with Colin Regier from Purity Fly Co. out of Saskatoon. I don't think it'll be our last one. Me and Jesse both had an awesome time with that. I think my biggest takeaway from this episode was probably, like, I already knew there was different ways that you could do things, different species you could target, not just trout, but actually how much things can kind of be used the same for each species as well. Like, the biggest one being the balanced leech. I already had known about the balanced leech, everything like that, but hearing it directly from him too is something that I think was pretty cool. And I don't know, what did you pull from that episode? I know there's lots going on in it, but
there was definitely a lot. I just really enjoyed like his attitude, like, are you having fun, are you catching fish, and just the whole idea of don't overcomplicate things. I mean, just because fly fishing is new to you just doesn't mean it has to be hard, and he has a very simplistic way of going out and catching fish and having a good time, and it really is, it's all what you want to put into it.
Yeah, exactly. And you would have heard right at the end of the episode there Colin's details as far as when the shop's open, everything like that. So if you do find yourself in Saskatoon, look up Purity Fly Co. And even if you're just going to go browse around the shop, like we mentioned, it's not just fishing stuff, like the clothes and stuff that he would have in there as well. Some pretty cool designs that come out of the fly fishing community, like your story there about the Orvis long sleeve, right? Like you don't have to be into fishing necessarily. Like, it's all good products. It just so happens that it's also tailored towards fishing as well. For sure. So before we get into closing out this episode here, just wanted to mention once again, the Purity Fly Co. presents Stillwater Spectacular with Phil Rowley. I hope I'm getting that right once again. But this is going to be 2 Zoom classes, 2 days on the water with an expert, learning everything there is to know about stillwater fishing for trout, which once again works great, as you heard, for the situation that we are in Saskatchewan here with so many stocked lakes to be targeting these trout. So that's going to be $500 plus tax. At the time that he sent me the info, there was only 4 spots available. So if you're hearing this and it is something that interests you, limited spaces left, so definitely shoot him a message and get your name on the list there. But I think you've got probably a bit more packing to do, a bit more to get ready. So I'll wrap this thing up here. I want to give a big thanks to 13 Fishing Canada for being the presenting sponsor of the Wknd Warriors Fishing Podcast. Head over to the website, get all your stuff ready. We're going to be open water season here soon. I think the ice is going to be off before the season starts down here. That's my guess. I don't know. Some years it's gone pretty close, but I think the water is going to be open. No more hot water, back to open water. Get your rods, get your reels, get your jigs, swim baits. A lot of fun early season here. Use the code Wknd Warriors. Save yourself 15% off. Without that, I don't know. Good luck, Jesse, on your trip. Hopefully have some good stories when you come back for the next episode, eh?
Yeah, thanks, Logan. I'm sure there will be plenty of stories. Whether or not they can make it on a podcast or not is yet to be determined.
Yeah, no, well, we'll be looking forward to that. Thank you to everyone for tuning into this episode. If you watch it on Spotify, you can also watch them on YouTube as well if you want to go listen again, if you just happen to listen to the audio file here. But thank you very much for tuning into this one, and we'll see you in the next one.